Now, April 20th is remembered across the country for several reasons. In Colorado, it's the anniversary of one of the most tragic experiences our state has witnessed, the Columbine shooting.
KREX 5's Austin Sack met with state safety officers to find out what lessons can be learned from that tragedy and how it can be used to save lives. He now joins us in the studio with more details. Austin.
Rob and Jocelyn, it was April 20th, 1999 at Columbine High School in Littleton, Colorado, when two teens went on a shooting rampage, killing 13 people and wounding 20 others before turning their weapons on themselves and committing suicide. The Columbine shooting was, at the time, the worst high school shooting in U.S. history. It also prompted a national debate on gun control and school safety. Now, 23 years later, Colorado school officials meet again, this time with a new plan. 23 years after the Columbine shooting, Coloradans will never forget.
We're still seeing the after effects 23 years later of Columbine. We see it time and time again with all of our school shootings across Colorado.
John McDonald is a school safety director for Jefferson County. He's asking school districts across the state to start having the conversation around crisis preparedness and recovery. But he says there's one thing he hears time and time again.
Schools that don't empower their students, their staff to report, to be trained, to be prepared, they don't like to have the conversation. And because the conversation sometimes is uncomfortable.
So how do we have a conversation that is difficult to address? Katie Garner, a training consultant based in Fruita, says it starts with our mindset.
I think a lot of people are afraid to have the conversation because a lot of people want to think it'll never happen to us.
Through Colorado's school safety resource, Garner visits with districts across the state to bring an improved safety plan with the hope to save lives.
We took, unfortunately, the lessons we've learned in Colorado and the best practices that are out there across the country and said, what specifically do we want Colorado schools to have in their toolbox?
It can be confusing with multiple safety plans across the country, like the Dewey-Cornell model in District 51 or the Salem-Keizer model in Montrose County. Garner says the state's plan takes parts of all plans to meet the needs of each district.
So the whole idea behind this crisis plan was really to help districts no matter the size.
When reached for comment on the state's new crisis guidelines, District 51 only addressed their 2018 plan, saying, quote, "We are committed to keeping students and staff safe through proactive and responsive methods that align with the highest guidance and standards." But Garner says there's still more that can be done. And when dealing with crisis, schools need to constantly update and evolve.
So you have the emergency operation plan, but how are you going to support the kids in the long term?
The newest state guidelines incorporate the input of K through 12 and higher education school security experts, mental health providers, and crisis responders, all on the same mission.
So that we can provide bullying training, crisis training, threat assessment training, suicide risk assessment training, and they're all for free.
No two crisis situations are alike, but by constantly updating plans, parents can be assured districts like ours will not only be prepared, but the recovery process after a tragedy might be a little bit easier. Katie Garner with the Colorado School Safety Resource Center says students, teachers, and parents seeking help, no matter the circumstance, can use the state's free counseling service through the I Matter campaign. There are same-day appointments across the state available in person or virtual. Reporting live in the studio and first on the Western Slope, I'm Austin Sack, KREX 5 News. Rob and Jocelyn.